Afternoon and welcome to Wednesdays with Witcher. I'm Curt Witcher, Genealogy Center Manager here at the Allen County Public Library, and it's great to have you with us on this Wednesday afternoon. We're getting started just a moment or two later than normal, so we may just bump our official start time a moment or two later than normal. But welcome, thank you so much. Our Wednesdays with Witcher are just an opportunity for us to get together and cover just one basic topic, and today's topic will be organization. And I know for some of you that might be, oh my goodness, organization, gee, can't we find anything more exciting to talk about than that? Well, I think organization in the genealogy space, and certainly for our families' histories and stories, is really important. And I believe it impacts our lives in so many ways. And we're going to talk specifically today about how what we're doing research-wise, how we can make that more readily available to our descendants and those descendants of ours whom we will never meet hundreds of years from now. I think what we do is fairly consequential, right? That's why we invest time and energy in doing it. So we're going to kind of focus on that topic for 20 to 25 minutes this afternoon. So again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Usually in these short mini sessions, we don't take many questions, and I don't think that we'll change that pattern today. Please, as many of you are doing already, introduce yourselves in chat. Chat is still available to you to crowdsource information, ask each other questions, ask each other how Family History Month is going for you. Has it been a good month of discovery, of networking, of feeling good about research that you've done and feeling excited about new things you've learned and new tools that you have available to you for future endeavors? So I hope it has been a good month for you. I know libraries all over the country are celebrating Family History Month in many, many different ways. And I hope you've been able to climb onto a number of programs from those particular organizations. We still have a number of people coming into our meeting this afternoon, so welcome on behalf of the Genealogy Center. We'll get started in just another minute or two. Again, feel free to introduce yourselves into chat and tell us where you're from. I see people from all over again. A good number of Fort Wayne people, a couple people from Minnesota, joining us from our neighbors to the north. So it's always great to have people spending just a few minutes with us. We are having our regular Thursday evening program tomorrow. Go to genealogycenter.org to get a list of the rest of the Family History Month programs. Remember, genealogycenter.org, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and you'll see a calendar of events for which you can sign up and enjoy some more activities. I'm going to mute my phone, as I believe I forgot to do that when we first started, to make sure that we're not interrupted in any way. Again, on behalf of the Genealogy Center and myself, Curt Witcher, welcome. I'm going to share my screen now and turn off my camera, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. Again, the voice behind the slide, Curt Witcher. It's great to see so many of you coming in to our program this afternoon from all around the Great Lakes area. Again, we have Minnesota, Michigan, Indiana. We also have some folks from the Pacific Northwest, Tacoma, Washington, some more folks from Maryland, and from, looks like Ohio, Kentucky. So lots of neighbors and lots of people from afar. So it's great. Really super to have all of you with us. As it is 1 minute past the hour, I will go ahead and get started. As I mentioned to a few of you who joined us early in this session, we're going to talk about organization this afternoon. And again, as I articulated a few moments ago, it can be kind of a dusty, dry topic. And I grabbed a quote from what we hear a lot of our patrons say when they're donating materials to us. It's all really well organized. We can almost say that with different expressions and with different intonations. It's all really well organized. Really, really, it is. Um, the subtext, the subtitle there, the truth about what we are passing on. So I have this very gloomy, and I always am hesitant to start a presentation on a downer note, but I have this gloomy hypothesis, prediction, maybe you could call it. I have not researched it at all, so there's no fact behind it. It's just a feeling based on mountains of circumstantial evidence. I believe at least, and I emphasize at least, every day in this country, one of those large, big land mover dirt haulers full of family papers, documents, research notes, photographs, diaries, letters, governmental papers goes to the landfill every day in this country. At least one of those every day. That's a lot of research that people have done, a lot of stories that have been tried to be teased out of documents and records that aren't getting shared with future generations, aren't being passed on to our grandchildren's grandchildren so they can see the research and hear in our documents the stories that we have found. I think that's kind of a shame. So as we think about the truth about what we're passing on, let's remember the power of story. I am so convinced, more so every single day, about the importance of what we do. We are the wisdom keepers, right? For our families. What we do is really important on so many levels, in so many ways. We touch people's lives. We connect families across generations. We connect families across collateral and tangent lines. What we do is critically important. And isn't it wonderful that we enjoy doing it, right? So the power of our stories is so incredible. Yet, what we do, how we do our work, oftentimes, how we document our work, doesn't evidence that importance, the importance of our stories, as much as it should. And I really don't believe that that serves us very well at all. In fact, it kind of works against what we say we're about, what we say we're trying to do. And as I just mentioned, we're losing a lot. And there's many reasons for that. One, because of the way we have typically, and I see some change in this, but the way we have typically shared our research experiences, we kind of disinvite people to be engaged. And I know some of you are probably looking at the screen like, what in the world is he talking about? I couldn't bribe my family with $1 million apiece to have them come along on a research trip, to have them help me with family research, to have me help me sleuth the millions of records are coming online every day. Maybe our approach needs to be evaluated because we're losing a lot and we're not, I don't think, engaging family as much as we could and as much as we should. And that's probably a primary reason why we are losing so much. But let's continue on. We're used to this, right? We are family historians with piles and piles and piles of documents and old papers. Sometimes we just leave them as piles and piles and piles of old documents and old papers. So when our children and grandchildren come to clean out our house after we're gone, to help us downsize, if we leave it to them to decide, they don't know what this stuff is. To them, it's not our stories. It's a bunch of old papers. What does one do with a bunch of old papers? One recycles old papers. I know a lot of us feel like we're buried in paper, and it's almost a Herculean task to get us to even think about how we might want to organize what we've gathered. So what do we typically do? We kind of say, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I just want to have more fun gathering more information. There's more relatives to interview. There's more millions of records on ancestry and family search and find my past and my heritage. I'm just going to go discover those. I'm going to play some more. Well, many of our offices look like this, or worse, this. And I hope a few smiles have come across your face, because I think many of us, if not all of us, can relate to this. And this isn't doing us any favors. We may know, as I often declare with my messy work office and my home office, I declare sort of with a sheepish grin, don't worry, I know where everything is, mostly. I can find anything I'm looking for, mostly. Give it a little bit of time. That's not going to help me, and it's not going to help us when it comes time to pass this information along to our children and grandchildren and their children. So let's take a quick, sober look at where we find ourselves now. At the turn of this century, which is almost 23 years ago now, we started seeing what I call the aging out of the generation that I call born at the bicentennial genealogists. 1970s was a watershed event for family history. The nation's bicentennial in 1976 brought history, local history, and family history to so many people's front of mind. I can do this. This is something I can do. This is fun. This is exciting. So many genealogical societies were born that year or a couple years later. Our very own Allen County Genealogical Society was born around that same time period. Alex Haley's Roots debuted that same time period. So, oh my goodness, we have all these born at the bicentennial genealogists that are aging out, and what's happening to their collections. They and their families started to realize, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with all this stuff? Oh my goodness, what am I going to do with all this? Who's going to care about this? How can I make anyone care about this? Well, the sad but sober little secret, if it's not organized in some, at least generally logical or understandable way, you can't make anyone care about it. As that last bullet point says, we've been at this for a generation now. How do we deal with this massive amount of research? And we're still really aren't committed to a solution. We aren't committed to finding a solution. That's kind of on us. That's our bad. So let's narrow in a little bit. Why do I feel the way I do about organization? Well, it's because of the nature of the donations that we get here in the Genealogy Center. Let me preface this by saying we are honored and very pleased to be able to be the recipients of so many donations. We know, we appreciate how unique all this material is, and the research that the thousands upon thousands of people who have donated their collections to us since 1961, when this department first started, those individuals entrusted us with their family stories, and we're honored to not only have those, but to share those so they can help other people find their stories and add on to the stories that have already been found. So I want to hone in a little bit though, even though we appreciate those, we could all be doing so much better. So we hear frequently when people come into the department asking about whether we will accept the donation. And they say, as I said at the top of the hour, top of the session, it's really, really very well organized. It's really very well organized. And the smiles on our faces that our donors see makes them say something along the lines of, really, really it is. It's very well organized. Well, I want to show you a sample of what we have received, just a sample, sort of the tip of the iceberg of what we have received in the last 24 months during COVID and as we're rolling out of COVID. So this came in this quarter. It was hand delivered to us, and we felt special that it was hand delivered, but I also think it was hand delivered so that the least amount of effort could be given to organizing it. Notice the variety of boxes that really have no meaningful marking on them about the contents in those boxes. So I'm going to ask the question over and over again. So how well organized can this really be? How can someone not familiar with the steps taken to do this research, how can someone really understand what's here? Notice on the left-hand side, we have 3 boxes nested into each other. The label that you see on this top flap here, where my cursor is rolling around a little bit, that's actually a mailing label that was on the box when it was first used to ship something to the house where the box landed, which wasn't the address or the name of the donor, so a reused box. Yay for recycling, important. not helpful for letting us know what's in the collection. We have a sneak preview about what's in the collection by this little opening in the Dumtar tab here, this little punch out. And we see the files are sort of laying down, and we see lots of different tape and a crushed box. And so we're not really hopeful that there's a lot of organization here. But yet this is how we receive donations. Last year, maybe the end of the previous year, maybe the end of 2020, but certainly by 2021, we received a couple dozen Purina moist and meaty dog food. Purina moist and meaty burger puppy chow. Nothing on the box except the original label. A blessing. Most of the information in the more than 24 boxes was relatively well organized, but it took a minute to figure it out and put it together and get it in some kind of order where we could share it in a meaningful way. This is a beautiful slide, I say with a big smile on my face. If you look down toward the bottom, you can actually see that there are 3 pallets here, 1, 2, and 3. The middle pallet here is one collection that was received about 2 years ago. Notice it's still shrunk wrap. There's a reason for that, right? We're holding it together because not a whole lot of organization came with it. This first pallet in the foreground was a fairly small pallet, so we have placed another collection on top of it. The third pallet also has another collection on top of it. A blessing, right before our eyes, a blessing, because we see these boxes, these tubs, if you will, are labeled. So at least there's some general organization. We're not quite sure exactly what it is, but we have a head start. What's a little sobering when we look at these boxes is we can see inside a little bit. We see they're not really packed tight, and there's papers coming out of folders, and there's books packed on their 4 edges, which kind of has damaged the spine of the book. But we're still hopeful, right? We're still hopeful that there's some meaningful organization to these. This collection of these small boxes, green and brown boxes, was received a little more than 2 years ago. There's a researcher in the area, died sort of unexpectedly, and her family didn't know what to do with this. So we heard the library. She worked at the library a lot doing her research. We'll just give it to the library. And again, we're honored to have it. Not a whole lot on the outside of the boxes to let us know. Sort of on the opposite side of our archive, we have these U-Haul and office supply boxes that again are labeled, but they're labeled genealogy. So that's not a whole lot of specificity there, right? And we're kind of have our bubble burst a little bit more when we look inside this little hole, this carry hole, the flap, and we see that there's an address of an envelope there upside down as the first thing we see. So clearly a piece of information is not in a folder, and clearly it's not very well organized because it's upside down in the box. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but let's take a closer look at this, right? So we open up one of the boxes and we say, yes, notebooks. There's evidence of some further organization. So we are kind of gleeful, and then we pull out a notebook and we see there's nothing on the spine and there's nothing on the cover. We pull out another notebook and we see genealogy, companion, and source book. And we open this one up, kind of excited, and we see that the entire notebook is a front to back photocopy of a copyrighted work. There's nothing we can do with an illegally copied copyright work except recycle it. But we're still hopeful because there are many boxes here. There are 18 boxes. So we pull out another notebook, and this one's rich with opportunity, right? Lots of protective sleeve covers, lots of newspapers folded up inside those sleeve covers, which, again, it's kind of a losing battle to try to preserve newspaper as a medium because it was never meant to be permanent. And putting them in sheet protectors kind of hastens the acetic process. But we won't even talk about preservation because we're focusing on collection, right? We're focusing on organization. So we pull out this notebook and we see, well, there's nothing on the cover. And Oh my goodness, there's nothing on the spine either. That's okay. We'll open the notebook up because we'll be looking for a title page or a table of contents page. And we open the notebook up and no table of contents page, no title page. So we have 18 boxes largely of wonderful notebooks. So there must have been some, we hope, collecting strategy in putting these in notebooks, but it's not discernible. For us who did not do the research, it is not discernible. And no paperwork, no documentation, no collection guide came with this collection. And that's not unusual. That's pretty usual. So you're getting kind of, again, a tip of the iceberg look at the kinds of donations that we receive. I must say, we still are honored that we're entrusted with this material. And it's kind of an awesome responsibility. And I'll be real candid with you. It's a tiring responsibility because we want to do right. We want to do best with these stories that are somehow hidden in these boxes and in these notebooks, these entities that we were entrusted with. And it's really extremely challenging to do our best with this. So let's take a more analytical look at what we are doing. How do we engage in our research? I want to go back to the basics because I think it will help all of us understand, one, why organization is so important, and two, help us get motivation and energy to really do better organization. So how do we engage in our research? Are we researchers and storytellers, or are we stuff gatherers? I'm going to be really sober and really honest with you. I think many of us, and remember I said us, not you, many of us are stuff gatherers. Do we gather and collect and that's it? Or do we also organize so we can evaluate? Do we write our research? Do we put meaningful paragraphs, snippets, vignettes to help guide our descendants, our grandchildren's grandchildren understand what we've done here? How robustly do we use our personal genealogical data management software? Do we use that to help us organize? Family Tree Maker, Gramps, Brothers Keeper, Roots Magic, Generations, there are so many of them. Do we use those to help us organize our paper files? We should. Again, are we just really stuff gatherers? How we are leaving our research may be telling more about how we are engaging or have engaged in our activities than we might first think. We might be seen as the sage of our family history at family reunions and the like, but maybe we're just the stuff gatherers. Maybe we're the basket weavers and basket keepers of lots of stuff, but really haven't taken the time, made the effort to share these things for others to enjoy. Kind of a sobering slide here, but it felt compelled to really drive the point home. We may not be leaving our collections in good order because we are not being our best selves, right? We are not doing our best work. And I think how our collections are stored, how we leave our collections does say something about whether or not we've done our best work. Yes, I know it's frustrating. It makes us pull our hair out and it really makes us run screaming in the opposite direction. Like, forget it, Curt. I'm not going to organize this stuff. I'm going to leave it for my grandchildren to take care of, for my nieces and grandnephews to take care of. I just can't. It's overwhelming. I get it. But we've heard all kinds of trite sayings over the years. One of those sayings is longest journey, single step. We know that. We know that in our professional lives, in our social lives, in our family lives. So why not in our genealogical lives? Longest journey starts with a single step. Long journey, single step. Another one, which some people don't like, but it always makes me smile. How do you eat an elephant? You know, a retort to that question is, who the heck wants to eat an elephant? But how do you eat an elephant? Bite at a time. No matter how big the elephant is, how do you eat an elephant? Bite at a time. So again, let's go back to basics. Last week we talked about this. I want to talk about it again. First thing, keep it simple. The KISS approach. Keep it simple. The more sophisticated it is, the more you're going to get hung up on not wanting to do it, and the more your descendants are not going to understand it. So going back to the basics again, what is this GPS thing, the genealogical proof standard? We know this. We talked about this last week as well. Exhaustive research, citing evidence is reliable, has been correlated, with taking care of contradictions, conclusions are reasonable, and we've written things out. Let's see this again. Number 3 and number 5 really call us to be more organized, right? The evidence is reliable and has been skillfully correlated and interpreted. To me, skillfully correlated means I've kind of put it together. I've put similar things together so I can analyze my findings. So I can say, yes, these people are my 4 times great grandparents on my direct paternal line. Or, oh my goodness, Curt, there's some doubt there. They may not be. I need to do more exploration. So skillfully correlated means organized to me. I'm going to offer to you that it should mean organized. The conclusion has been soundly reasoned, and I like the second part. Coherently written, right? We don't do enough writing. I call it writing up our research. We're so busy hunting and gathering, looking for things, gathering them up. We should take time to write up our research. That would help us organize things, and it would help others coming after us to make sense of what we left them, whether it's organized or a mess. But because we don't pay enough attention to organizing and we don't write things up, I guess I'll just be honest. We're leaving our descendants with a mess, and we're already lamenting, like, isn't that too bad that they don't appreciate all the work we did gathering these records and documents? Well, I think that's on us. I hate to say it, but I think it's true. I think that's on us. Um, Too bad we're not valuing what we do. This has real life implications for our collections and who will benefit from them after our time has passed. Again, I said it a few minutes ago. If it looks like a bunch of old papers, it will be treated like a bunch of old papers and will be discarded. What we receive in the Genealogy Center, again, is a small amount compared to what we never know about and never comes this way. So how do we organize? My colleagues and those of you who know me from previous presentations probably expect this answer, so I'm going to give it to you. How do we organize? Yes. Some will disagree with me, even some will vehemently disagree with me. I don't really care, though, how you organize. Just please organize. And there are some really critical basics that I see not applied in all the collections I showed you a few minutes ago. Not applied. And these are just really basic, simple things. We need to embrace both legacy activities, so paper files. Computers were going to make us paperless. Computers have only added to our paper, exponentially added to our paper. So we have more organization to do than we've ever had. Why not marry our legacy activities, the old paper activities, with new ways, electronic ways of identifying, waypointing, and indexing our materials? We need to involve other members of our family in doing this. A good friend and a former fairly consequential person in ancestries management, back in the day when her daughters were young, she would pay them a nickel, a quarter, an entry, or per every name they found on microfilm that they were looking for. It got the children involved in it. Now all of a sudden they're not a bunch of old papers, but they're old records and items that our children and grandchildren have helped us gather and draw meaning from and make conclusions about. We need to involve more members of our family in helping us organize so that they'll know what it is they are responsible for when we're no longer around. So yes, organize. We were given a couple dozen Snoffer family notebooks, and this was the description we were handed. And it's like, oh my goodness, this isn't very much. This is horrible, Curt. What did you do with these? Well, a blessing. The person who organized these notebooks had a table of contents page for every single notebook, where every single family group was listed on this table of contents page in the order that they are in the notebook. So we can scan these table of contents pages, OCR them, make them searchable. Now we know what families were and are in which notebook and what order that they're in. This is leagues above 99% of the donations that we receive. Basic, really, really basic organization. Are there better ways of doing it? Yes. Are there simpler ways of doing it? Probably not. And sometimes it is keeping it simple. So some basics. How do we organize our paper files? Um, by surnames, main line, collateral line, depending on how much data you've gathered and what kind of data. You can organize large collections of surnames by given names. You can, not shown on the screen here, you can organize them chronologically. You can organize them by geographic location. Um, whatever you do, do something that makes some kind of sense, an interface between your genealogical data management software and your paper files. Now, I'm all about being green. My 4 sons tell me, hey, mom and dad, you know, you've kind of left us with a little mess here on planet Earth. And I get that. Our generation probably should have been paying a little more attention. Actually, should have been paying a little more attention than we were. But all that having been said, print out family group sheets and stick them in front of folders or groups of folders, or put a family group sheet in a file box of all like folders, so that when you're passing this information on to a family member, to a library, an archive, a historical society, they have some idea what's in this box, what's in this container, what's in this folder. It will draw so much more meaning to how you've collected things and draw much more meaning to your research. So why not print out ancestor charts and circle the family that's in the folder? If someone is looking for McCowan family, well, they know Crawfords are in there and Donaldsons are in there. Maybe you'll have a whole box of Crawford family folders, maybe 5 boxes of Crawford family folders. And people not familiar with your research will say, why are these Crawford family folders in these 18 boxes of McGowan family folders? Doesn't make any sense. Well, including pedigree charts, ancestor charts helps make sense out of how we have collected things. Every folder, and you'll see this on a slide coming up, every folder should be labeled. Yes, I know it's a pain. Yes, I know there are only 24 hours in a day, but if it's worth printing out, if it's worth capturing on paper, and if it's worth keeping and filing, then it's worth putting something on the file folder label. That makes sense. Don't have some personal coding. That's of no benefit. Have something that makes sense. And if you're really interested in sharing what's in the folder, you can even write on the outside of the folder or print labels that show how this family fits into descendancy. That's how we need to be taking care of our information. Other basics goes along with a genealogical proof standard, creating mini narratives for each folder, section, notebook. It doesn't have to be War and Peace. It doesn't have to be Moby Dick. Just a couple sentences, just a paragraph. Tease yourself into, okay, I'm going to write 500 words. 500 words is almost nothing, but really consequential when trying to keep things organized and let people know what you've saved. Include generous copies. Yeah, I know, not too green, both electronic and paper, of your keyed family history data. Put it all over the place. So no matter what folder someone picks up, she or he will know, oh, this is the Witcher family, but it's in this whole Gogol collection because a Witcher married a Gogol 2 generations ago, 5 generations ago. Don't leave it to someone else to folder your data. Don't just have boxes and drawers of loose papers. I know it's tempting to file by pile. It's not useful, though, in making sure your information stays for future generations. Don't have any unnamed folder. And there are many file naming conventions, both electronic and paper. Pick one, create one, find one, use one. You can be creative. That's okay. I know some people might grimace a little bit, say, Curt, there are best practices. Well, a lot of people push back against best practices. A lot of people don't feel like they need to be told what to do. And that's a whole nother subject. But whatever you pick, be creative. I really am enamored with the second bullet point here. Periodically ask a family member or a genie buddy, hey, take a look at my files here. Does this make sense? And it's kind of fun to ask someone who doesn't think like you do. You might be surprised at the sobering, not necessarily positive information they will share with you. Like, oh my goodness, Curt, what were you thinking? Why isn't this over here? Why aren't these Englets and Shooks together with the farmers over here? Why are they separate? You don't have any piece of paper in here telling me that those three families are related. It's fun to have someone who hasn't done the research with us kind of evaluate what we're doing. We really do have our history in our hands. That's exciting, and it's kind of sobering because it's a huge, huge responsibility. We've come to the end of our half hour. I'm going to stop turn on my camera and stop my screen share. And I'm just going to take a quick look into the Q&A. We normally don't do a Q&A. I see there's a question in Q&A. I forgot to mention this at the top of the hour. None of our half-hour programs have handouts. So if you'd like a copy of the chat, send us an email, genealogy@acpl.info. Send us an email, and we will email a copy of the chat right back to you. It looks like there's been a nice amount of activity in chat. Always excited to see and to hear that. Thank you so much for joining me for a nice little break in our Wednesday afternoons. The middle of the week sometimes can be a challenging time for us, right? Getting up in the morning, getting caffeinated, getting excited about having made it halfway through the week. Thank you so much for joining us. Please take a look at our Family History Month activities, and please join us tomorrow evening for our normally scheduled Thursday evening program. It's been awesome spending time with you. I hope I've given you a couple of things to think about. I hope I haven't been too much of a downer, and I hope that I've motivated you to think, yeah, my children's children and their children really can benefit from what I'm doing. Am I giving it? Am I leaving it in a manner, in a way that they can benefit? Take care, be good to yourselves, and we'll see you, we hope, tomorrow evening. Take care.